Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Problem Solver Politics live stream. We be live in the Problem Solver Politics studio. I am your host, Carden Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And, we're going to be talking about all kinds of cool stuff. Got to give some shout-outs to the people in the chat first. What's up? Trevor Topsick was first. What up, Trevor? Followed quickly by Marianne H. and Nate Johnson. What's up, guys? And got a question right off the bat from Vaughn Doromal. Are you guys thinking of having Mike? Oh, we're already botching this name again.
It's Breuer. I know. That's the problem. A lot of the times I'll do a lot of my research into people. I'll read. So, like, I have to. That's why I get names wrong all the time. I have to just kind of guess. I try to look them up, but yeah. So instead of Breuer, I believe it was Breuer. Anyway, why are we talking about this again? Why are we bringing this up?
All members of the UBI caucus are welcome. We'll reach out.
Yeah, we'll probably reach out to him soon. We just had we've had like a week and a half, 2 weeks here where we couldn't really schedule anything because we could barely be in the same room for 9 minutes to do anything. So I didn't want to schedule something and then not be able to make it. But as soon as we start interviews again, he's definitely at the top, especially because very interesting race there, especially because I would like to talk. I feel like a lot of, as I kind of talked about yesterday, I feel like a lot of it's just overlooking the fact that there is no Democrat he's competing with. And I think if you have to win, you have to beat everybody. So I think it'd be interesting to take a look at kind of like that little micro race as well as the thing between him and Mitch McConnell.
Is that real?
Yeah, that is real. I was going to talk about that because I thought,
wow.
Yeah, because I guess, I don't know, maybe I was going to wait a little while. We'll bring it up again later, but we're probably going to start over the next few weeks while the news cycle is what it is. I mean, it's gotten to the point where it doesn't matter like what I look for news in. It's basically just like drama stories everywhere. So I thought it'd be fun for the next little while. We're probably going to do daily live streams and cover some different type of topics. That's nothing really that different. I'll show you guys in a second. Just holy cow, man. I guess I'm more just going to complain about the media lately, but dude, the last God, I don't know, month and a half. No, maybe just 3 weeks. It's going real bad, man. Like, I read the news, and it's just like, someone's got beef with someone. Headline. It's like, God, wow, man. That's crazy. These people had an argument. That's insane. So anyway, I thought it'd be fun to look at some news that are outside of Joe Biden hates Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Actually, I do want to talk about something we'll get into a little bit. Hillary Clinton's doing her thing, raising a lot of money for Joe. I just got to think, because we went to that AAPI, I think it is, Asian American Pacific Islander, right?
Yes.
We went to a conference with them to see Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard and Tom Steyer. Actually, I saw Tom Steyer up close, but I have multiple times. Anyway, though, in all seriousness, no, I got an email from him yesterday being like, hey, if you pay $25, you can watch this live stream with Hillary Clinton. Like, Hillary Clinton was on Rachel Maddow a couple days ago, basically saying, like, wink, wink, wow, imagine if the Chinese tried to hack Donald Trump's tax returns. Wink, wink. That would be bad for Donald Trump if China did that to make it hard for him. I was like, what a crazy thing for her to just go on TV and say. So there is still some stuff that is fun to talk about. We'll probably still some videos on that and stuff. But, I mean, like, a lot of stuff in the news now is like, oh, wow, you see that? You see this TikTok video where this guy yelled at somebody? It's like, wow, dude, it's insane. Anyway, only reason why I say that is because I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about kind of a larger story around this. So, gotta be honest, this Miko Cleland at Dapper Historian, I'm gonna be honest, I know nothing about this guy, so I really hope he's not the worst person ever. However, or, some psycho. I don't think he is. This seems like a pretty interesting tweet. Anyway, he said, this is a newly discovered just outside of Verona, what could be this year's biggest discovery, an almost entirely intact Roman mosaic villa floor. Well,
we anglicize it and call it a villa floor, but yeah.
Well, I guess how do you say it in the Latin word? What did the Romans speak? How do you say it in Roman?
It was called vulgar Latin.
Anyway, though, my point is, this is really cool, right? And the thing is, though, is like I was looking around. There probably is maybe something. I couldn't find any like legit media sources. Later in the Twitter thread, he mentions he's like, someone asked for a source. He's like, my cousin sent me these pictures. They know somebody. And they found this, but it led me looking into something interesting. They reference it in this Twitter thread, but interesting story I want to talk about a little more. And some of you guys might already know this.
Was this they were like digging cable or something and they found it?
Honestly, I don't even know. However, it is really interesting to talk about something else. So apparently, and I didn't really think about this, but it does make sense, I guess. Do not tell me this article that was free for me 10 seconds ago is that going to cost me money to read, because I'm not paying for it. Okay. But anyway, one thing that's so interesting, again, like going back and looking at this, it's pretty cool stuff. You see this little Roman mosaic. This could be like what? Many years old. Very many years old. I don't know how many.
Well, the Romans, think about it.
But this one thing is interesting. There's a lot of stuff throughout Roman. Italy is by no means a rich country, right? There's definitely wealthy parts of Italy. We'll get to that in a second. But Italy is by no means a wealthy country, really.
Wealthy
in
poorest tourism.
Country, and it's not very wealthy. What do they export out of Italy, right?
Poor
Shoes.
intellectually and culturally, but no, I'm just kidding.
That's like, I don't even
just
know if
throwing
that's,
some barbs out there.
I don't even know if that's like a dated thing. I think it's just like a weird thing to say. But no, like cars, shoes, stuff like that. Anyway, this happened back in, oh my God, they really are going to charge me for this. Dude, again, this is something that drives me crazy about media.
They let you start reading, and then 2 minutes in.
It's not that. It's one thing if I have to pay €1 a month to read. But like I am bombarded by ads the second I open this webpage up. Anyway, guess we're not going to get too far. We're just going to gleam over this. Long story short, they discovered the first Roman emperor Augustus's stables he had built off of one of the really cool old stadiums in Italy.
Rock on.
And they'd uncovered it, I think, early 2000s. And they're like, wow, this is really cool. We should renovate this. We should do something with this. This is really cool. Well, in 2014, they ruled that there's no money. They can't afford to do it. And it's probably going to do the archaeological site more harm than good by just being open in the elements. So they reburied it. I'm going to try to pull another source up real quick. But they reburied the archaeological site. I literally said, like, well, maybe future generations will be able to enjoy this instead. But anyway, it gets to the point that there's no money to do these things. I mean, imagine it costs 20 billion euros to restore something and you're Italy. And you're like, we don't got 20 billion euros to spend.
Well, they do. They just decide to,
dude,
pocket all the cash.
Look into how Italy's run government there. It's not a very wealthy country at all. Trust me. But this is not the poorest country ever, don't get me wrong. But Italy's not. They don't have hundreds of billions of euros to throw around on restoration projects. However, not everything inside. Like I said, Italy does export some things, right? So, we're gonna go. This is. It's actually kind of funny. I'm using the South China Morning Post as my source on this one, but they wrote a pretty good. They wrote a pretty good article. Normally, I clown on them because it is just Chinese government news. But this is really interesting. There is one group of people in Italy that is stepping up to restore these monuments.
Yeah.
The fashion brands.
Wow.
And it's really fascinating to go through this. You actually have like, I think they're referencing it. They talk a little bit about the opening of the Cultural of Notre Dame, but there's parts of like the Colosseum, like I guess the Circus Maximus or whatever, that are literally, I think, have little plaques or like markers somewhere like Dior spent money to rebuild this fountain.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned
and
that,
it's really interesting to go through and look at some of this stuff, but this has been something that's going on for a little while. I think, here we go. Todd's. I've never heard of Todd's shoes. I guess clown me if you want. They chipped in for the restoration of the Colosseum in Rome. So like some of the biggest you have the wealthy industries in Italy, the fashion brands, right? But Chanel put 25 million euro in the restoration of the Grand Palais. I'm not even. It's a historic show venue. It's expected to finish by the end of this year, and it's not forgetting, of course, the contributions by LVMH and Kering's owners to the 1 billion plus raised for the restoration of Notre Dame de Paris Cathedral. I'm not going to try to do it in French. I can't do it. Badly damaged by a fire. By the way, do you know it's only been a little over a year since there was a fire at Notre Dame?
Oh, I know. That was a sad day.
If you would have told me that was 3.5 years ago, I'd been like, I feel
it seems like that's right. Yeah.
That was 14 months, 15 months.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that all of the fashion companies are actually stepping up to, restore a lot of these archaeological scenarios and locations. Because when I was in Argentina, we toured La Casa Rosada, which is built on an old 15th and 16th century Spanish fort. All right. You actually go into the basement of La Casa Rosada, which is the equivalent of Argentina's White House. The Republicans and the Democrats were the white party and the red party back in the day, and the president thought to show union that he would just paint their Capitol building pink. So it's called literally the Pink House. We have the White House. They have the rose-colored pink house called La Casa Rosada, which is the president's headquarters of Argentina, okay? But it's built on an old Spanish fort, and it's cool. You know how in The Dark Knight they go below the estate of the Wayne family and you can see all of the trusses for part of the foundation, and Michael Caine's like, these must be the hollows or whatever it's called. Those must be the foundations of Wayne Manor, or however he says it. It's just like that. There's these big arches, and you walk through the foundation. It's beautiful. And what was so interesting was a lot of renovation had stopped getting done. A lot of things that were falling into disrepair. And the guy that was the tour guide said something really interesting. He said, unfortunately, our country doesn't care about these things as much as other Western countries do. And when my friend went to Granada to see a lot of the Moorish installations there in the south of Spain, the tour guide said the same thing, lamented that they weren't getting fixed up as much, and actually said something really interesting. Said, I wish Disney would buy this building, because anything Disney buys, they end up at least taking care of and keep it from falling down. And I don't want this castle in Granada to fall down,
well, dude,
right?
Think about the same thing as when Fendi remodels your... Do you think they want a Fendi logo next to some decaying, awful, falling apart fountain? Like, no, that thing is going to be pristine. I mean, one of these, I'm trying to pull it up, one of the fountains, I don't know anything about fashion brands, but one of the big ones, I guess, they paid a lot of money to restore, and they had like a big fashion show. Like, they didn't have a runway. They were walking in the fountain, this ancient Roman fountain they restored. That was like the rub. Like, okay, we're going to pay a lot of money to restore this fountain, and at the same time, if they're going to be using that as a venue for, their next fall launch, you'd bet they're probably going to restore it. So I think, to your point, that's kind of what we saw. Anyway, it wasn't a huge big thing, but I saw the tweet someone mentioned about the
in the Trevi fountain.
Yeah, well, someone tweeted out that they were discovering new Roman, tile work in random parts of Italy. Like, that's crazy. They just find stuff like that, and then they found out, they just find stuff like that in Italy kind of frequently. But the problem is, no one can afford. Dude, I do think these are really expensive boondoggles, right? Like, imagine you're a country that's mostly in debt, and it's like, okay, someone comes.
But they wouldn't have to.
I have a $42 billion proposal for you to unearth this building and then restore it to its former glory. $42 billion? I can't pay for anything. Like, I can't give you $42 billion to restore a building from thousands of years ago. So I can't do it. Won't do it. I think that does happen a lot in many countries. I mean, you have to admit, it's kind of one of the luxuries of being a super rich country like America, where we could be like, oh, we're going to preserve this building because it was built 130 years ago. That's about it. Nothing else special about it. Just been here a while. But it's going to be marked by the government, and we'll, restore it. Like, that's... Even in America, we don't do it for every building. But think of some of the stuff that are, landmarks. And there's reasons. They have, cultural ties. They've been there for generations. But... it's just funny. You think in Italy, they dig up something from, the most revered first emperor of Rome, and they're like, it's going to cost money, man. Just bury it. Rebury it so nobody can steal it or loot it or destroy it. And hopefully when we dig it up again later, we'll be wealthy enough to maintain it. That's so weird to me. But I guess, like the guy said, your guy got his wish. It's not Disney. It's fashion brands doing the same thing.
Well, it's... okay. Concerning the boondoggles... I don't have a lot of patience for these people that use that as an excuse. Now, in some places, history is oozing out of your ears so much that you can't spit without stepping on a ruin. And sometimes to build a modern bridge that you need, you just literally have to bulldoze some Roman ruins, which sounds kind of crazy. But I'm actually, I have an acquaintance that is, for lack of a better term, head of antiquities in Israel. Okay. And the Romans occupied Israel for hundreds of years, and all the time when they're going to lay cable somewhere, they'll come across a Roman ruin. They'll be like, "Oh, this is an aqueduct," and they send him out there to say, whether or not it's actually something that needs to be maintained because it was just some peasant's aqueduct, or whether this was Herodias's 5th greatest aqueduct that's been a lost artifact for 500 years, right? And it was really interesting because we went down there and he went to the construction site. He saw what it was, and he said, "Oh yeah, this is 5th century Roman." He's like, "Yeah, you can bulldoze through that. That's fine. Like we're loaded to the hilt with 5th century Roman." And I just thought, wow, what is it like to live in an area so culturally and archaeologically relevant that you're like, oh, this is only 5th century Roman? Yeah, you can bulldoze through it. And the only reason why I don't have a lot of patience for a lot of these countries that let some of the very important stuff and culturally relevant stuff go to ruins is because it is a cultural problem. Greece, for example, when they were having all of their problems, big internal financial problems, and they were saying why they couldn't raise the revenue, a member of my church was actually hired to be a consultant by their entire government to figure out what was wrong with their economic system. And he went in there, he said, okay, let's talk internal revenue, how you tax your people. And he opened up the books for the pool tax. There's like an $8 a year pool tax you have to pay. Just like, when we smog our cars, how you have to, pay that $20 a year or something to smog, and that goes towards whatever program is in charge of air quality. Yeah, well, they have a program where you have to pay like the pool tax, right? And of like the 50,000 pools on record, only 8 people had actually paid their pool tax because everybody else was giving like, just a handout to the corrupt official that was going around collecting the tax. Like these countries are so non-transparent and corrupt and unethical in almost every practice of government.
1 second.
They let these jewels in their backyard go to waste.
Okay, but if you're complaining that Italy is corrupt, you're about 3,000 years late in that one, man. Like, yes, that's my point. It's a broke country. Is it because they're corrupt? All I know is
no, but it's not a broke country.
Type in,
if they would run it decently, it would be the richest country in Europe.
Okay, you know what?
Just off tourism.
I blew it. I had a really good
France
chance.
and Italy.
Did you ever see the video where the guy said, and if my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bike? Like, yeah, I guess if things were different, they'd be different, man. But as things stand today, you could type in Italy economy debt and find a new article every week or so talking about the crushing debt the Italian government has. Here's the one recently, opinion piece from Washington Post. Just talking about what's certain is that another debt crisis would prolong and deepen the worst economic downturn in the 30s. We may be dealing with a multi-decade and poorly understood cycle that originated in the 50s, yada yada. Anyway, though, I think I wanted to mention that the crisis was resolved in... People with good memories that will recall from 2010 to 2012, Europe stumbled through its first sovereign debt crisis. The weakest members of the European Union, Greece, Italy, Portugal, Spain, and Ireland, struggled to avoid default on their sizable government debt, a task made harder by annual buzz deficits. I remember this. The crisis was resolved when Greece was allowed to restructure, that is, reduce its debts. And Mario Draghi? Oh, got it wrong. The then head of the European Central Bank declared in July that the ECB would do whatever it takes to ensure that other countries didn't default. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. It's not about the debt availability. My point is, Italy is not very rich. Italy is debt problem. Italy has many problems running their country because it's actually kind of fascinating. You look at Italy and it's like other countries in Europe. It's like Italy is like there's various different regions of Italy that are. It's kind of like France. Like there was Paris and then like those awful people outside of Paris. Like,
Les peasants.
Yeah, the non-Parisians, right? Like they spoke a different language until the 1800s, I think.
No, it was up until World War I. One of the biggest problems with soldiers on the front was they couldn't understand each other because of the different...
How many years out of the 1800s are we in World War One?
Okay, you fine. We could split that hair. I'm
just saying, like, either way, I thought it was funny to talk about, interesting. And I'm not saying anything wrong. I agree. Governments maybe should put more care into this. But dude, to your point, when you are a country like Italy is a good example, but I guess to your point, like there's places like Israel, parts of the Middle East, places where there is like, it's one of the things you don't have to worry about in Kansas, man. There really isn't any 4,000-year-old relics in Kansas. There really isn't. That just was not the people that lived on this continent thousands of years ago. But in some countries, it's kind of a problem almost. What, you think the government's spending $0 in Italy right now for any kind of restoration projects? They're begging their biggest companies to fund them because they can't, there's so many.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to get something in chat.
Hit it.
Because Christian Solid said, "Is my birthday today?" And PSV Stream Hangout feels like an birthday. Happy birthday, man. Seriously, happy birthday on this wonderful May.
Yeah, Charles95G says, "Woohoo, PSP and fixed my truck today. Better than Christmas. I can't think what's better than a functioning vehicle and a Problem Solver Politics live stream in one day
And
either."
someone else brought something else. What is one of the biggest stores of wealth in what would be considered Italy? A separate country called Vatican City.
Yeah, I was about to say you
an
actually
entirely different nation called
I don't
Vatican
even
City
think
that
it's
exists
the.
within it. Yeah.
I don't even think it's the financial wealth. What I think the greatest wealth stored in the Vatican is those vaults.
But you know what I mean.
I think people would pay more for the money. I would pay more to know what's inside of those vaults. All those confiscated books and records they've got from like medieval times. I think intellectual wealth stored underground in those vaults is worth more than the statues.
I found out this recently. So somewhere in London, I guess what they used to use is like early forms of receipts. What you would do is you would take a stick and you would mark on the stick for how many units of whatever you were trading, right?
Yeah.
And then you split it in half, and each person would take their half. And it was kind of your proof almost.
Okay.
Like we agreed it was like 5 coins, right? And they had like a standard system of like, I forgot, they got like marking sticks, something like that. anyway, and they would use them. Banks would store them in vaults. Like, you would give it, I think they were used to prove you paid taxes. Like, the tax man would give you one, and you would say, no, here you go. I paid my taxes. They gave me one of these. Look at a match up with the one the tax man has. Anyway, to your point, they kind of just stored them for a long time in England because they were used up until, like, I don't know when, but they were used up until, like, surprising time. But to your point, they had so many of them. Like, what do we do with these? They're just sticks. Now, they are like a wealth of history of, like, literally kind of almost like banking information people have had. But they're also just sticks, so they burned them all. And I guess the fire was so big it burned a couple buildings down with it. But yeah, because, I mean,
it's called a tally stick. A tally stick is an ancient memory aid device used to record and document
I just
numbers.
watched a YouTube video on it and kind of summed it up.
Get out of town.
I'm just saying, stuff like that does happen, where they have, like you said, they'll just be like, oh, it's an ancient wall. Because here's the thing, dude, you could say it's a 5th century Roman wall. You can also just say it's an old wall. We don't need this anymore. It's rock. You can knock over. You can knock the granite over. We don't care anymore. Right? Because from a certain perspective, it's just sticks. It's literally old sticks. We don't need them.
All the way up until the 20th century?
Yeah, probably in rural parts of England. Think about it, dude. Like, you didn't have, like, the Owen Wilson, but they didn't, they had, like, not everywhere probably had a ton of, like, carbon copy paper around forever. Probably still more convenient to just mark up a stick, break it in half, and say, hey, man, if the sticks don't match up, you're lying, right? But yeah, they just burned a bunch because people do it all the time with what we call, like, history. But, like, it's history, I guess, but, like, what do you want us to do about it? Right? Like, I guess the English government's like, we can't use this building because it's full of sticks. This is stupid. What should we do with the sticks? That happens all the time. It's weird, but it happens.
Okay.
I agree. Maybe they shouldn't, but what are you going to do?
So, I think we should bring this back.
Why?
Because there's something. I love analog. There's something about tangible goods.
Literally film you shaking someone's hand and going, "We agree to this price nowadays," with less effort than making your tally stick.
Yeah, but that's kind of cool. It's like film, you know? Don't you just love this small...
I'm talking literally about film. What do you mean it's like film? You can film yourself and say, we are agreeing to purchase this plot of land for 40 cattle, shake on it. And
I know.
You could even put it on Twitter or Snapchat.
But it's like, I got the receipts. I heard the tapes, but then there's no tape.
Prove it. It's out there. Like, not only do you have the record,
but the Nixon tapes aren't cool if they're tapes and they're just MP3 files. It doesn't sound cool to make a movie called, the Nixon tapes, the Nixon MP3s. No, I'd watch the Nixon tapes, not the Nixon MP3s. There's something about that tangible good. Anyway, we got a super chat here from Devlin Duck Hodges.
Ducky Hodges.
Hey guys, question. Should police/regular beat cops be unarmed in the USA like in Iceland, Ireland, New Zealand, Norway, and parts of the United Kingdom? Or in other words, should we emasculate ourselves like the rest of
Hold on. Can I
Iceland, Ireland, New Zealand,
before we get
Norway,
into the entirely emotional
and parts of
and hyperbolic argument?
Hey, I'm answering the super chat. It's my...
I'll just get mine out of the way first because it'll be shorter.
Okay.
I would say no because people have guns in America and they use them. Also, I would say no because police don't need a gun to kill people for no reason. So, like, but it's like the police will still be out there. This thing that's crazy to me. Like I said, I don't want to go too far outside, but only that's crazy to me is I think people lose their mind. All the police do is enforce what the government tells them to do. Like they're the actors of the government.
Yeah.
When the government makes a decision that hurts you, the police are the one who do it to you. So I think keep that in mind.
I think cops should be better armed.
I wouldn't blame them. Yeah, I don't blame them for wanting guns because we definitely got guns in America and we'll definitely shoot at cops in America. So I don't blame them for wanting guns. I don't. But at the same time, I don't think it would... I think they would still be out there killing people with or without guns. So,
before I answer my question, Anastasia's dad has asked for a rock on. Therefore, here is your rock on. Rock on. My answer to this question, thank you for the super chat, first off, Devlin, is guns are a force multiplier, okay, and necessary in emergency situation. And I want my cops to be able to respond as effectively as possible to an emergency situation. Look up, for example, the North Hollywood shootout. I remember this as a kid. During the Hollywood shootout, guys came out with body armor and like AKs, and they were actually better armed than the cops were. So emasculated cops don't do anybody any good other than costing money. Because let's be honest.
Cops, though, right? He's talking about beat cops. Like you would still have like special weapons who would come and do the shooting with the guys with guns. Like beat cops aren't interfacing with...
He's not a cop if he doesn't have a gun. But something unique about the cops and law enforcement personnel is that they're given extra constitutional authority to enforce the Constitution. there's a reason why a citizen's arrest is different than a law enforcement arrest.
No, my only point was just specifically if you're talking specifically about like the guy who drives around and pulls you over for speeding, right? Like not the guy who comes in to fight the armed dudes, right? Just specifically those guys. I think that's what he was saying.
Okay.
That's the only point.
Yeah. I think instead of emasculating cops and making them into mall security guards and then asking for SWAT to show up, okay, we just need cops to be better trained and the media to be more responsible. I mean, really,
what does the media have to do about whether or not police philosophically should be
because the
carrying
whole
weapons?
reason
What does the media have to do
the
with
whole
this?
reason why American society is even talking about this the past
media into everything. You really do.
Yeah, because the media drives so much of the conversation. They
just
are
drives your
in
life,
everything.
man.
All
I think
media,
they're in your life.
all media is narrative, and the media pervades everything. It's like water. That's like saying, Carter, why always talking about water?
Dude, are you kidding? You just compared the media, which by the way, I frequently feel much better go days ignoring. It's like water. I die. It's like my point exactly, man. You die without water. You die without media for no. You don't need this.
No,
stuff.
I'm saying there's not a subject.
Nonsense. It doesn't. You don't need it. It's stories. I don't know why that's something to do with how we should govern our country. Is how the media.
Okay,
would
fine.
react.
Well, then you talk.
I'm just saying, man. Why? I don't get it.
Because there's not an aspect of American culture, manufacturing, or society at large that is not covered by the media. And our media has atrophied into being irresponsible and is giving us all these weird ideas.
Media aside.
Like, should cops not have guns?
But the media is not the only one. There is people who genuinely think these things, not because the media got in their brains and forced it on them.
Yes, there are a couple of people that think
not
that.
a couple. There's some. I don't know how many, but there's got to be some.
I would like to get to the end of my sentence. Can I answer the question? I let you talk for 5 minutes with your answer, and I can't get in 5 seconds.
I would prefer if you interjected so I could build better cases when I'm getting off topic.
Well, let me tell you right now. They're not cops if they don't have guns.
That's
all
like,
right?
God,
that's like saying, oh, yeah, so when you call the cops because a bank robber comes in, what? Do you want Paul with a can of mace to show up? Oh, I'm glad Paul's here. He's not a cop at that point. He's a dude with a can of mace. All right? So if he's a cop, he should have a gun because cop needs guns. All right? To do their job because bad guys have guns. And the only reason why this is even getting suggested, this has never been a widespread suggestion until literally probably the past 5 years. And the only reason why it exists is because we have an over-amplified idea that all of our cops in America are these racist, knuckle-dragging idiots with no training who are going around just shooting people indiscriminately, which is a narrative put forth by the media to get sensationalist clicks and headlines, when in reality, the vast majority of cops are responsible. And I think there are issues of training that could get resolved, but the benefits of having a well-armed, well-trained police force are far better than the half-trained, half-armed police force that we have right now. It's like a knife. A sharp knife is better than a dull knife. A dull knife will hurt you. Sharp knife won't.
Look, I'm sorry that I interrupted your absolutely profound argument of cops need guns. But, and don't say I'm like strawmanning. That was literally your stance. Not a cop without a gun. That's Carden's stance on guns. I'm just saying, I do think there is a... Dude, I'm using your own words. I'm sorry if hearing your own words bothers you, but I think beyond you're not a cop without a gun, I think the premise of it is something to keep in mind that when anyone with when cops walk around with firearms, and to your point, right, they have to be able to use them, right?
Well, and plus it's
if you
a
give
deterrent.
A cop a gun, but they're never able to use.
Would you rob a bank if the cops had
Okay,
AK-47s staring down the barrel of your noggin, or if they didn't and you knew they were soft targets? Vulnerability breeds aggression.
Okay, but hold on. By the way, here's the thing. I just want to get this in the open.
Yeah.
The reason why you're like, you always interrupt me. I just stop talking and let you get your point across instead of fighting you about it until it becomes a big thing. I'm okay, fine. Say what you got to say. But the bigger thing is, what I'm saying is this, is that there is an argument to be had there. You can get personal. You can get in your feelings and be like, but the media makes me so mad. Or just like,
that's not what I do, Cody.
You think you bring them in and you talk about how the media lies? Is it beyond
I say the media lies.
Media aside, what is there to the idea of regular police carrying firearms in the street doing the regular job? That means they have... Here's the thing. Literally just today, a video came out, and there's protests going on right now. I think they're coming in the chat, the cops got fired, of cops killing somebody, and they didn't use the gun. They just basically smothered him into the concrete till he perished, right? Like, they didn't need a gun to do that. So
yeah, that's what happened to Eric Gardner in Staten Island.
One of the things where I say, like, I don't think taking guns away from cops means they won't be abusing their power and killing people. That's going to always be a problem. So you have to ask, is it outweighing the idea of them carrying firearms to deal with the people that actually have guns, right? But it is weird, right? Because like both things happen. Cops shoot. Here's something too to keep in mind. I guess to your point where the media does bother me, they're very selective in the stories that get promoted. I don't know why. I'm not gonna. There's probably a million reasons, right? But dude, like if you just like look really, you read a lot of local news, stuff doesn't go national. People just get killed by random people all the time. Cops have bad. Dude, this thing blew my mind. The thing we're talking about is one of our previous streams. One of the deputies at the Parkland shooting, who just sat behind his car and did nothing. He had been on administrative leave up until like a few months ago. He was brought back on the force with back pay for the months when he was off. He got paid for the months he was off the force because they kicked him off because he cowered behind his car while a bunch of kids were getting Kobe'd, right? So like, it's crazy to me to think that like, I don't know. It's really weird. It is a good question. It's one of those things like, what do you want in your police for? Well, the only point is this. I think there's a more interesting discussion here than police have to have guns because the media is trying to emasculate them. It's like, but even beyond
okay, well,
that.
Why should cops not have guns?
Like
because they want to mitigate the, quote, bad cop violence. So you have to answer this question. Which do you feel more comfortable with? A force of cops where they all have cameras that hold them accountable, but all have amazing training to make sure they're awesome sharpshooters to keep you protected? Would you rather have every cop a camera and every cop a gun, or else no cop a camera because it's intimidating to people, and no cop a gun because it's X, Y, or Z?
My stance is that in America, because so many criminals do use firearms routinely, it makes sense for cops to have guns. It makes sense. You brought up the LA shooting, which I mean, I think which is a good point. There's a famous shooting that happened right out here. Like they did studies on it where like a couple, get about this. This happened out in Los Angeles County in like the 70s. There was a shootout between our highway patrol and some like random criminals. And like, I was reading the Wikipedia article, Wikipedia articles, they'll have like the belligerents and the people on both sides, right? It was like 2 CHP officers and like 3 civilians who stopped with their own guns. And like one of them picked up one of the deputy's guns and started shooting back at these guys. But there's been a lot of times where that does happen. I mean, oh my God. Here's something weird. We're getting talking about militarized police. You want to talk about like Killdozer? Like, what do we do in like the Killdozer example, where a guy basically it wasn't a literal tank, but he functionally made a gigantic tank and rampaged through his city. And obviously we don't give police things that they don't have anti-tank rifles, and they won't be using, not going to wheel the tank gun out. But what do you do, right? And like to your point, that happened in LA, and I think that's why they made SWAT. SWAT was the response for that, right? In the instances where you do have like, holy cow, beat cops with shotguns and pistols, have no, I mean, to the LA shooting, I guess it was funny. One thing in the little anecdote of that event, there was deputies, or those are LAPDs. Those would be officers, right? Anyway, there's cops who they literally like were driving to the neighborhood gun stores to like commandeer their inventory so they'd have something closer to what the gunmen were using. And that's when they realized, okay, we need to actually beef up our SWAT. So when this bad stuff happens, we can, because I think they're already that existed, but they're like, we need to make sure these guys are able to move in. So it's one of the reasons why I don't agree that cops shouldn't carry guns at all. One, because they'll kill you anyway. And they don't even have to kill you, man. They could falsely arrest you. They could hold you in jail for how many days?
Ruin your life.
The government, here's the thing. Most of the times we see like what just happened in Minneapolis, I think is what it was, or Minnesota, I believe. Don't quote me. Anyway, no weapon was used at all. I think actually, here we go. Ducky Hodges super chatted and said, but would the people standing there intervene if the cops didn't have the guns and possibly prevented a homicide? I still believe no, because here's the thing, man. Like, the bigger problem with that stuff is that they're the police. Like, ultimately, if you like are swinging at police officers trying to kill him, let's say the guy does live, all I have to say is we aren't going to kill him. So, you go to jail for it. And then the thing is, the thing that cops do every day that ruins people's lives, you just don't see because they don't make viral videos. They just throw you into that system for nothing.
Yeah.
Arrest you for pull you over on some BS, right? Arrest you on some BS, charge you on some BS, try to get you to plea on some BS.
You have to spend the weekend in jail, so you didn't pick up your daughter for your meetings. So now all of a sudden you owe $2,000 assistance, which means you got to go to court, and you end up having to, I mean, just by having gotten stuck in a cell overnight, your life could be drastically changed. You won't be able to get a job because people could be doing background checks, so on and so forth.
Yeah. They can just ruin your life that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I do know. I think, yes, that the answer to the questions is that cops need a gun, but they also need to be trained to the hilt. I mean, I do have a problem. We got a problem out here in our suburb.
Well, I think accountability is the only thing we can do, though, right? Because even if you train them really good, it only takes one guy to just be well trained, but a jerk.
Because training prevents deaths. Like there's some.
It always forever exclusive. Like I'm saying, there will always be bad things that happen. You just gotta hold them accountable.
Philando Castile was an absolute training problem. That cop was a stupid idiot who was given the constitutional license to kill and a gun with, I'm convinced, without adequate training or accountability to pull it off. If you look at a case of the Philando Castile case, yeah, that is absolutely a function of training. Case.
And even the things, I'm sorry, if your argument is you could perfectly breed super cops who never make mistakes and don't have bad shoots and bad kills, hey man, you're gonna be rich when you sell these super cops to local departments. But like, there is gonna be people who filter through. They need to do better. I'm not saying that training isn't a problem, but like, dude, I think it's my only argument here is it's one of the reasons why I think accountability is so important, because you can't perfectly train people so mistakes aren't made, but we can try to make sure we catch the things when they happen and use them hopefully as more of a deterrent. Because dude, right now I see these people got fired. Dude, cops can. One of my favorite stories. Here's the one thing that I hate, and this is kind of one of my little pet peeves about the media, I guess, as you always talk about, but in general, just that people talk about stuff in social media. It's one of the reasons why I don't always like to have everything jump and immediately turn into some kind of racial conflict. Because here's the thing: police officer, whenever that video was recorded, I don't know, today or the other day, literally snuffed someone's life out with his knee on the back of their neck. I mean, it's like literally the Orwell quote. It's almost literally the Orwell quote. It's like figuratively the Orwell quote, right? But the thing is, like, instead, the thing that scares me is that guy, I'm assuming, even if it was, that guy lived in America, was an American citizen, living under the authority of the American government, and they can just snuff you out like that. And once you start spinning it as, oh, but these little tiny groups, it's like, no, dude, the police can just snuff your life out like that, on the street, in front of people. And I don't like this, oh, but they wouldn't do it. They will do it to anyone, man. I don't get this idea that it's like they'll do it to anyone, and they do. And they get away with it almost all the time.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. It's like, that's an American who died. Why can't we just say, why are Americans being killed by the police? I understand there's more to it. I'm not saying you should totally just be like, well, weird here. No, nothing go. But still, it's like, that needs to remain in the heart. The fact that it's like, we're all American citizens in this together, and the police are killing us. I don't know. Like I said, people get bothered by that. I'm sure people are not going to like, but that's just how I always look at it. I'm like, dude, but like, if they could kill that guy, why can't they kill anyone else walking down the street right now? Why? What's stopping them? Nothing stopped them there. What's stopping them taking out anyone that way? But I don't know. It just, that's...
We got some interesting comments here that I actually really like to dive into, because I'm agreeing with a lot of them, and I'd like to hear a little bit more from our listeners here. Tom says, my dad was a Los Angeles deputy in the 80s, and he said body cams made him stop roughing around suspects. Body cams work. Ouch. But hey, the LA sheriffs are a crappy, corrupt department anyway. So, and there's great sheriffs in that department. I'm just saying, by and large, under the leadership they've had over the past 10 years, it's been a horrible, horrible organization. I know this because I was in a lawsuit that made it all the way to the Supreme Court against the LA sheriffs, and that is different than LAPD. There are two different departments. I think this is really interesting. The beat trustee says we should be able to vote out police officers. It would be kind of interesting if policing were a voter-based kind of thing. That's pretty interesting. I don't know how you could get a force large enough.
Well, larger than that is this. Like, what happens when people start just voting out? What happens when the bad cops are the ones who get elected? Let me put it this way.
Would you want Joe Biden to be a
what
cop?
Congress people seemingly never go anywhere?
Who is the Nancy Pelosi of cops?
Exactly. What senators never leave? The awful ones. The ones that sell out their people on a daily basis. They will stay in office until the end of time. Because here's the thing. Elections? Oh, with money? So you're telling me, hold on 1 second. You're telling me that my private interests, whatever they are. Let's say I happen to own some property in a part of town that's got a lot of crime. And I'm really only interested in crime being cleaned up in that one part of town. So I just basically I get my own people in. That's the same thing as you do in any area. Like,
by the way, that's literally what happens in Argentina. That is literally how it works in Argentina. Is the cops don't make enough money, okay, to sustain a family, and they feel vulnerable all the time because they can get doxxed and have whatever thug come over and kill their kids or their family whenever they're gone. So they live in fear, and you got to pick a side. Do you pick the mafia or do you pick the corrupt officials? Because if you pick the corrupt officials, you'll be the police person in a detail to protect their family and their business friends. Like, oh, you get to be one of the mall cops. Like, being a mall cop means you've actually made it in the Argentine police department because it means you've got friends.
It means you're taking bribes, right?
And you're taking bribes. Yeah, exactly. Bribes. So you're either taking bribes from the mafia, you're taking bribes from the companies, or you're taking bribes from the government officials. Either way, you're taking bribes. And that's a horrible way to live, okay? Because you're forced to be a hypocrite in that system. To defend the good, you literally have to engage in the morally bad, and it creates cognitive dissonance.
In America, for the most part, I can't speak for everything, but for the most part, stuff like chief of police or police commissioner is one of those. The sheriff, a lot of those are actually elected positions, and it's one thing is the compromise we kind of have. Again, I just think the accountability is lost in the middle, because the compromise is this: we can't vote out the deputies, but if the sheriff is not holding his deputies accountable, we can vote him out and vote one in who will. The only problem is because the other thing too, right? It's you can't just like put your head in the sand and say that there isn't bad actors who want to commit crimes that are going to be politicking in this as well. There is people that literally want to just perpetuate crime, and they want to make things worse. They want more bad things to happen. And once you bring the more you create politics into enforcement of laws, the more they're able to get in. The more they're able to start. I mean, I know it's not real life, but I thought The Wire had a pretty interesting way of highlighting this. But this stuff does happen in real life, where actual organized crime interests, they're donating to campaigns, man. I mean, the real criminals too, not like the drug dealers, like international criminals, people who have to store their money in countries that barely exist because they shouldn't have any of it, right? Those kind of people, they're going around, they're giving money to people all the time.
So we've got another
war criminals, the best kind of criminals.
The best kind of criminals. Okay, so Dustin says something interesting that I completely agree with, and there are 6 officers in town that are 100% proof positive of this comment. Cops have become revenue collectors for their departments, so it's the administration's incentive that needs to be changed. I agree with that. There's actually 6 cops in our local force that were leftover CHP officers who, upon their sector getting dissolved, they were literally just peddled out, and they just put the word out saying, hey, who needs 6 cops? And the city of Santa Clarita literally said, oh, we'll take them. And what do? They're the motorcycle cops that just give tickets every single morning and every single evening on the commute as people are coming to and from work on all the major thoroughfares in town. And their sole responsibility is not protecting and is not serving. It's writing tickets to gain revenue.
Well, how about
That's
this?
it.
How about this? Because I'm assuming, I don't know the backstory, but I definitely see people radar gunning around the same. How about this? Do you think they're just doing it for money in those spots for no reason because? Or is this what happens? You go to your local rep and you say, people drive like madmen on the streets. There always crashes. People literally die driving too fast on this street. We have DUI accidents. It's an outrage. Something should be done. So, they go to their local reps in the city. What is the city going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to put toll roads? Or gates up on the roads? No. What can they really do if people are driving too fast on a certain road? They make it like speed. They put a bomb on your car if you go above 50. Like, oh, you're done now. All they can do is park a deputy there and have him write citations so people get the message, I guess. And then here's the other thing. If that doesn't work, you go to the people and complain, and they say, hey, what do you want us to do? We got someone there radar gunning every morning. You don't see him. He's not visual. You don't notice him pulling people over. We're doing something. In reality, no. People just speed, crash, and die in the same rate. The only difference is you're writing tickets too. I am just saying, is that not possible as well?
That is possible. I'll tell you right now, I think 85% of tickets written are revenue collection. Full stop.
But
85% of tickets written are just crappy revenue collection, and it's an additional burden and taxation on the people.
Where they do it is probably just like the show for like, we're doing something. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You collect revenue, and you get to tell people you care because we're trying to stop speeding.
So there's an interesting super chat here that has to do with my court case that went to the Supreme Court. Hit it.
So it's Biscatronic Tendo Super Chat said qualified immunity for cops needs to go away that will really hold them accountable for their actions. Which, there needs to be something. Here's the one thing too to keep in mind. You know what? law enforcement officials also tend to be, and in some cases they're the big ones, they're government employees.
Yeah.
You know how many laws and regulations states got protect? You know how many? You know they got unions, right? These police, like, dude, they have political interests. Is my only point. They have very heavy political interest, and it's one of the things that I think needs to be more of the focus. It's one of the reasons why I don't like getting lost in the more emotional knee-jerk things. There's obviously problems with racist beat cops, and even some departments of like a lot of racists who get together and do things. However, while that is indeed a problem, you have a bigger problem if you have police departments that do nothing but terrorize their communities and get away with it time and time and time again. Because they have unions that lobby to get politicians elected. The politicians help get stuff passed. Like, that's what's going on in the background. That enables everything else that people complain about. But here's the thing. When you complain about the end result, you can never solve the problem. I think that's what's happening. There's ridiculous political nonsense that goes on behind closed doors involving all these police departments, all these sheriff departments. They're elected positions. They get donations from people. They have reps they work with in the government, all that stuff. They get to, for example, out here in LA County, remember when our sheriff just said, hey, I know that California is supposed to be closing gun stores. I've ruled them essential, and I'm the sheriff. I enforce that law here. Like, that is
that was the city supervisor. The county,
you're right. Actually, the sheriff was fighting with her on that.
The sheriff wanted to shut them down. It was the county supervisor.
I got that one back. But there has been instances where the sheriff will do that, though. They're like, we're not going to enforce that law here. I'm trying to think if there was an instance. I'm blanking. However, they can do that. But again, that political mumbo jumbo, I feel like they get to skate by on that over and over and over again because they're like, focus on this one incident because we have video and you're mad. But don't pay attention to all the nonsense that goes on behind the scenes that gets the judges that do nothing, the prosecutors that do nothing, just no one gets held accountable for anything. Because, I mean, a lot of times I don't want to say arrogantly, but we'll decide what a good police officer is. You have no idea what's inside of an apartment they call a good police officer, right? Inside the department, good police officers might kind of keep their eyes to themselves, keep your eyes straight ahead. Don't talk about other people. You don't talk about our business. Hey, we have to do things a certain way. Like, it's just, I don't know. I feel like we a lot of times we like to pretend we have a unique way of rationalizing things in our head that other people don't. It's like, dude, people rationalize things they do all the time. Almost no one wakes up like, God, can't wait to be the worst, most miserable asshole ever today. You know, they wake up going, God, why is my life so hard? Why are these people, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's the same thing. We look at these departments like, how inside the department, they're like, not high-fiving, but they're like, hey, good, kept his mouth shut. Did what he was supposed to do. And like, that's the problem. The people who enable this, they're the problem. The individual dude who's getting thrown under the bus when these videos go mainstream and they send you his name and say, hey, they're fired, hands off. That's the system throwing someone under the bus for being allowed to act that way within that system. But they're like, crap, you got caught, whatever. Nothing to do with them. It's like, why? Why? What are we diverting attention away from? Why are they being thrown to the wolves when others are protected? Hey, maybe they're actually getting justice this time. That's what's happening. But I don't know. I feel like they're thinking of it this way. If you hang these guys figuratively, like tomorrow, you stop asking questions, you stop looking into things. If we try to protect them, you're going to start asking, does stuff like this happen around here? Is this normal for police officers to just basically strangle someone for no reason? Does that happen a lot? But if it just goes away because they get fired and tried and close shut case, well, then it just went away. Oh.
Okay. Speaking of law enforcement, I see the headline here, and I'm actually very excited to see what this
it's funny getting into this.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think there's a better segue from law enforcement than this one into law enforcement via Zoom. This one's pretty wild. Cody, you got to tell us what's going on.
Well, this has happened in a couple of different countries, but this was it's weird, man. But yeah, getting to the idea of the state being able to just murder somebody, right? How about this? So it's from The Guardian. This goes back a couple weeks now. Some of you guys probably have seen this headline, but Singapore sentenced a man to death via Zoom call. A Malaysian man received sentence remotely for role in a drug deal as city-state tries to stem coronavirus. Yeah, just a little pro tip: don't be involved in Southeast Asian drug deals if you want to like make it out of. Like, there's people talk about like, man, I mean. Hey,
no, it's brutal out there.
Beautiful countries, but they'll just be like, well, we caught you. I guess you just die. I mean, like, that's how it goes. But check this out. So, A man convicted of drug trafficking offenses has been sentenced to death in Singapore via a Zoom video call, the city-state's first case where capital punishment has been delivered remotely. Rights groups condemn the sentencing of...
By the way, why is it a
Punithan
city-state, not a
Genesan,
nation-state?
a 37-year-old Malaysian, as inhumane and a reminder of the country's continued use of the death penalty for drug-related offenses. Sorry, I don't know.
Because, I mean, if Gavin Newsom can say California is a nation-state, why can't Singapore?
Well, it's not what
they
Singapore
should just
can't say. It's what the Guardian can or can't say. So
Okay.
I don't know what that means. They're the one writing
I was
it.
about to say, this
isn't a Singapore press release.
Yeah, they need to up their claim game. You know what I'm saying?
That's just how but anyway, the individual was found to have been complicit in trafficking at least 28.5 grams of heroin by coordinating 2 couriers in 2011. He denied any connection to the pair, but his defense was rejected on Friday. Sucks. The country has been under quarantine measures since early April, following a surge in the number of cases linked to migrant worker dormitories. Anyway, moving forward, I want to get to the bottom part. There we go. They mentioned, I don't know if they pulled up, but a similar case did happen in Nigeria where a man was sentenced to death via Zoom for murdering his employer's mother, has also been criticized by rights groups. But it is really interesting, this, because there is a lot of things. You theoretically can sentence someone for your crime remotely. It actually, I don't even think this in particular is that weird. I think there has been times where judges have presided over cases remotely just because they can't be in multiple places at once or whatever, right? Like, people have got, like, video sentencing, right? Like, here's the judge reading off in video. But there is something weird about this new live component, but there's one other thing I want to touch on.
Okay.
This is what's crazy, is we're finding out how many different ways machines can sentence you to death. I think there's one, like, the algorithm, like, was sending someone a bunch of, like, end-of-life care stuff because their algorithm knew they were about the past, and they did. But how about this? This is a year ago, mind you. This is way pre-coronavirus. This is before social distancing. This is before any of that. We're going back to March 2019.
Oh, this is horrible.
A hospital sends a robot doctor to tell a patient he is dying. So a California man's family is, they're upset, are they? Is upset after his life-threatening diagnosis was delivered to him by a doctor via a robot. Check out the story. So on March 3rd, a nurse wheeled a robot into the ICU of 78-year-old Ernest Quintana at Kaiser Permanente Medical Center, emergency department in Fremont. Their granddaughter, Annalisa Wilharm, told USA, the nurse came around and said the doctor was going to make rounds, and I thought, okay, no big deal, I'm here. What she didn't expect was what happened after the nurse opened the door. Wilharm didn't see a human being, but a machine with a video screen of a doctor. She told USA Today the machine was there to tell her grandfather how the hospital had ran out of effective treatments. That's just the start of it. Listen to what happened. According to KUTV, Willarn said her grandfather couldn't hear much of what the machine was saying, and they kept needing it to repeat itself. It got to a point where she had to tell her grandfather he was dying because he couldn't hear what the robot was saying. The robot essentially told Quintana, you might not make it home since Willarn. And she goes to say
that is just
you would think
wrong.
Here's the thing too. Do I really need a doctor to come in and say there's nothing we could do? Like, the nurse can't come in and say, hey, there's nothing we could do. Like,
that seems like that has to be a human interaction.
Exactly. Even if it's like it's coming from a nurse instead of the doctor, it isn't like she's reading off charts and like saying, well, you're 7, 8, 9. She's just coming in. If someone's just coming in and saying, we've tried it all and it's not working, so this is where we're going to be moving you to end of life. Why does it have to be? It has to be a doctor to the point where a computer screen is better than a human. Like, if I was the nurse wheeling this in, that's some that's people still say shade. I don't know. That's like some massive disrespect right there. And it's like, you know what, nurses, we don't trust you to walk in here and tell this patient his diagnosis, which is basically he's not going to make it. Like, I don't understand why a doctor has to tell you that. Like, you know what? Just a little aside, that's the arrogance of doctors. Even if you have to wheel me in on a screen, of course you'd want to hear it from the doctor, right? Like, the doctor is, of course, through the in this time of need. It's like, dude, get over yourself, man. They don't need to wheel you in. And this has happened a couple of times. I believe one time, this was a weird thing too. At one time, I think it was a California hospital, but they had zoomed the doctor in from, I believe it was like a country in Africa, but it's like, there wasn't you couldn't find a doctor. It's not that we couldn't get you a doctor by video in the county. It's not that we couldn't find one in the state. It's not that we couldn't find one in the nation. It's not that we couldn't find one in the hemisphere. It's like, dude, what is going on? Like, really?
Yeah.
I know flame with where the doctors are from, but it's like they couldn't, like, why are we video calling in doctors from, like, thousands of miles away? Is that much of a shortage to the point where you have people being told they're going to be, basically, we're moving you to end of life on a Zoom call? And again, this is pre-social distancing. This was just I don't know. It doesn't it to get back to the sentencing of the drug dealer, right? But there is something just so cold about it, right?
I know. I feel it in my heart. It's like I'm saddened by that person. I mean, what's it like to already be at the end of your life and then not be able to? It's like I think if you're going to pass, that's the ultimate life and death situation. I mean, to not be able to ask the questions of, well, what led you to that conclusion? Like to just, I don't know. It just on a fundamental level, it feels
Humans communicate
wrong.
in a lot of ways that we literally don't know how to put into words.
Exactly.
Because the ways we communicate without words, like it's that's like it's like a human beings can't really explain all the people try. They write books. You got the pickup artists. They'll give you all the hints, right? Or the other grifters will tell you how to read someone like a spy. And it's like, nah, dude, like people are obviously better than others, and you can kind of pick up. You can like what like shifty eyes means dishonest, right? But it's think about that. How many people know that if your eyes are shifty back and forth, it means you're like being dishonest, right?
Yeah.
So you would think if it wasn't something just so
my
innate,
wife says that I have an eyebrow thing.
But say this, you would think if we knew there was a thing we did that was our tell, and a lot of us do, that it'd be simple to just not do the thing.
What's your tell?
It's almost like it's so ingrained in us, and it's so beyond our rational part of our thinking, we just do it anyway. How about like dude, people having shifty eyes when they're lying is like weird because people that are lying know they shouldn't do it. Like, think about it. You're already lying. You can't just look someone in the eyes when you lie to them. Why not? Like, why not? You're already lying to them. What's so hard about it? And I gotta be honest, can't put it into words. Most people can. Isn't that weird? But I think
so what's your tell, dog? What's your tell?
I don't know. But my larger thing is that I think it's interesting how, like you said, like it feels like why does it matter if they're behind a computer screen or 9 feet away from me? But I think there is just those little the tangible, subtle things that we don't really know what to describe that do matter so much, and that's because really think about it. Like, what's so crazy about getting your sentence, even if it is death, via video? Like, it's not like you can punch the judge in the face. Like, seriously, he's just gonna tell you what it is. Here's what we had a trial, man. But still, I agree. That's something just so cold and messed up about it. The you're going to die from a doctor thing, that I do think it's just doctors being arrogant and thinking that I am so much above the other non-doctors in the hospital that no way can they go and tell them in person. I must deliver it from my high horse on this computer monitor. Like, I think that's just arrogance. But for distance, just for space, I mean, again, to the idea of having a doctor in Africa diagnose someone in California via video just kind of because you can. I mean, I have to imagine there was other doctors that could have video chatted in. It was more just for the hell of it. But you'll notice, like, for convenience sake, we are seeing a lot of that stuff. And it's kind of like that weird source of outsourcing. You know what? Until somebody is given a death sentence in a VR chat lobby, I'm not too upset. Until somebody gets sentenced to death in VR by a judge who they modded to be like an anime girl. Until then, I'm not going to be that upset about this stuff. But once that happens, I'm done, man. It's over.
Hey, virtual judging. Ooh, that might be actually something that, not sentencing, but virtual judging. That could be something that AI starts assisting in right now, especially on small cases.
That would be crazy. But here's the thing: like, what you feed the facts. It's like how many cases can you look at the facts and wrongly convict someone in? Right? Like, I think a lot. Where you look at the facts and it's like, well, obviously they're guilty, right? Oh no, shoot, they weren't. Whoops. Are bad. That's the thing. Imagine if no one even tells you are bad because it was a machine that just deemed you guilty. No, that's the most un-American thing I could think of is algorithmic sentencing. That's the most like. If we start sentencing people by algorithm, I'm up and I'm moving to Mongolia, dude. Yeah, I'm done. No one's ever gonna see me again.
Hey, where they speak their, are you gonna learn the ancient language that they're reverting to in order to get rid of their Soviet history?
I'd probably learn Russian just to be easier to move around the region if I had to. But
would you legit learn Russian just to move out of a place that had algorithmic sentencing? That's like Whoopi Goldberg saying she's moving if Donald Trump gets reelected. She's not going to do it.
I would do a lot to flee a state that sentences you to death via machine. I would do a lot, man.
No, you wouldn't. You'd say, well, I'm not getting sentenced to death for doing anything, and then you just put up with it.
No, because that's not how algorithms work. Doesn't matter if you are doing something wrong or not. They'll just throw you up in it. I would get out. I would do the, what was his name? I would, they'd have to be like a SWAT team kicking in the door in Cuba to drag me back to America. What was that kid who...
Elian Gonzalez.
Yeah, they'd be Elian Gonzalez and me back to America to stand trial for daring to leave the country because that's against an algorithm. No, I'm just, dude, that's when stuff's over. That's when it's like the government is just arbitrarily. That is, I think, the definition of arbitrary dishing out of life and death. You could say, well, it's by an algorithm. Yeah, okay, but it's arbitrary to the algorithm. Like, you could explain to me the processes of the magic machine that ruled this person guilty, but I don't care. I don't know.
So there's some really funny comments in chat right here. Shadow Wolf says, wait, anime girls doing the sentencing? Let Hatsune Miku sing the sentences to people. That would be the ultimate creepy if an anime girl sang you will be guilty to death by hanging, or whatever she does. For those of you that aren't familiar with Hatsune Miku, isn't she that anime girl you showed me that has like rock concerts, but she's not even real?
Hatsune Miku was actually going to be at Coachella. No, it's Vocaloid, I believe. It's not. It's literally a computer program. It is, but like it's also one of the biggest. Now it's a little bit. Now we're getting. There's other stars competing, but like for a while it was massive star of Japan. I'm not from Japan. I don't know all the reasons. I have heard one interesting thing about it. One of the reasons why these Vocaloid digital stars did get big is because just like weird expectations of pop stars to be like pop stars in all those countries, they can't really like be seen like with boyfriends or husbands out in public. Like, in America, it's kind of like, ooh, who Britney Spears dating? It's a little bit less like that, I guess. Just what I've been told from my friends who are into K-pop and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's one of the reasons why those digital stars got big, because you could just kind of write those things out. They are not real. Like, basically, these companies, in order to make the most money they could out of their investments, which are real people and they were singers, were trying to force them to live in such inhumane ways. It was just impossible. Human beings can't live that way, and they would break and crack all the time. So they started just making digital AI versions, because guess what? They aren't humans, and you can put them to inhuman standards.
Yeah.
Whether it be an output, like, dude, you could literally look up like the top 100 Hatsune Miku songs of the first week of January, and there's 100, because it's not a real person. You could have 50,000 people making 50,000 different songs at once. Kind of off topic, but it just, I guess to your point though, yeah, what if we started having law enforcement like that?
Cray.
Have you seen the pictures of the dog robots that patrol the parks to make you social distance?
Not the dog ones. I've seen the flying ones. There's dog ones now?
You haven't seen the four-leg drones that literally, drone.
Oh, now this is dystopian.
You have not seen this?
This is just a bad Orwell novel right here.
Let me see. Oh.
I've seen in New York on the Brooklyn.
Hold on. Guess who we're going back?
What?
Guess who we're going back to? Back to Singapore. Once again. So again, Singapore is really up on their. Tell you one thing. If there is a cutting edge in state-powered law enforcement, Singapore's gonna be on the cutting edge. No flame, it's just what they're good at. Yeah, look at this. They had this little dog. I'm gonna play this video, and it would just it would patrol around the park, and I believe it would actually tell you to social distance if it catches you being too close to someone.
What the heck?
Isn't that crazy, dude?
That's like freaky.
And the scary thing is, maybe for sure, but I have a feeling in the back of my head, like if you tried to physically accost that thing, like it would just like coldly and robotically like punch holes through your body.
I was about to say it would just like go up on its hind legs and then just like throat punch you and groin punch you with just two different legs all at once. It'd perfectly.
Be like the Sherlock Holmes movie. You ever see the Sherlock Holmes movies where it's like in slow mo, like knee, thigh, elbow.
Yeah. Oh my goodness gracious.
There's that. Yeah, but isn't it crazy that they already have stuff
that's
like that?
When I moved to Mongolia.
Okay, that's when you go to Mongolia.
Is when those little dogs start showing up, dude. That's when I moved to Mongolia. Although I wouldn't choose Mongolia. I'd go to like back to Argentina or something like that. It's going to be 50 years before they get that down there.
Well, no, dude, that's why I go to, in my opinion, let me know, chat, if you actually, there's some pretty good spots in like Eastern Europe as well. But I feel like
the only thing
if you want to disappear off the face of the earth right now, dude, Mongolia no one's looking for you in Mongolia. As far as I know, by the way, no reason. No extradition treaty between the United States and Mongolia, as far as I know.
Okay.
Like, no offense to Mongolia, but like, who do you even pick up the phone and ask? Like, we think there's an American somewhere in Mongolia.
No,
like
the embassy, and then they send out the secret police, which is really just the mafia.
What's interesting is because there's like you said, there's like the Soviet influence, more largely developed parts of Mongolia, from my understandings, and the more rural regions closer to the Chinese border. slightly more. Like I think a majority of the not a majority, but a large chunk of the population of Mongolia could still be described as nomadic. Anyway,
Yeah.
point being, seems like a pretty good place to blend in. Now you might have the Chinese encroaching on you, and you might get warped into the Chinese hell dystopia. But
Did we get
what's he
Sly
gonna do?
Cactus' super chat saying "Rest in peace, George Floyd"?
No, we did not. But yes, I believe that indeed was. Don't get me wrong, but he was the individual I believe that was. I mean, just killed by the police. Crazy. Have you seen the video? I don't want to
No.
play it because it's literally someone dying, but
Oh, gee.
like, they just kill the guy. It's like the weirdest thing. It's like I said, it's not the weirdest thing because police will just do that to people, and it freaks me out, man. Like I said, because a lot of people say it's because he was black, and there's parts of it he is black, and the police that is a narrative. But keep in mind, like he also, I'm assuming, paid taxes. Assuming
Yeah.
he was a citizen, he's an American. Like pretty much anyone who lives in America is American watching. I know we have some non-American
we need to get
viewers.
we need to
flame,
get
but like
the
it's just like they did that to basically like just another person who
the
walks
racial
around.
narrative distracts from the civil rights narrative.
Well, I just think
Yeah.
it can let people get off the hook because they can focus us away from the fact that it's like, dude, like I guess he was black. I personally don't feel I'm that much different than that person. If the police can kill him, they can kill me. That's just kind of how I look at it. If they can do that to them, they can do that to anyone.
Well, or they can just send that robot
So,
dog after you.
That's what I mean. Am I going to get murdered? Have you seen the Murderbot drone video? It's a fictional, meant to be like scare you away from drone technology. But they talked about like, what if you just make a drone with face AI that just flies up to your face and explodes, and it only kills
Dude.
you because it flies right up to your face.
Wow. It's like hypersonic weaponry before you even notice it. Well, they kind of do that in New York already with all of the facial scanning technology and all the touristic parts that catch people that have all kinds of different warrants out for their arrest. I mean, it's freaky what they've been doing
Vegas
already.
casinos got that?
Yeah.
For card counters and stuff. Cheaters. Hey, you won way too much last time, man. No, I'm not going to say who, but kind of friends of friends. Like, I knew a guy.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, it was funny. He was trying to get fake IDs. I'm like, dude, why are you trying to get a fake ID? You're like, you're not under 21. Why do you need a fake ID? Because he kept getting busted counting cards at a casino he used to like to go to, and he's like, they kicked me out. So I need to be able to check in under a false identity, or not check in. I need to be able to show up and play under a fake identity, so they don't know it's me.
Really?
And he grew out his mustache, and he did the whole night, and he got away with it. It's not like a perfect technology, but they will do a lot.
Wow. That is intriguing. I can't believe that. That's pretty nuts.
Oh yeah, isn't that crazy?
But a stash, you'd think, okay, if it's going to be recognizing pinpoints on your face.
This guy was not the
Yeah.
He wasn't Kevin Spacey in that movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things.
Wow.
Don't flatter yourself. They don't literally have a guy they pay every day to watch the door for you and you in particular. It's just kind of one of those things where like, you're not welcome back if we see you here. If we notice, it's what most of the time people get thrown out of places. It's if we notice you here again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you come back and legitimately don't do the thing
Dude,
that pissed us off, so we don't even notice you're here. Whatever, man. We're not gonna make a big moan
To the
about
day he died, my grandpa was not allowed in 16 of the casinos in Vegas because he won too much money. He was like the World Series of Poker champ back in the 60s before it was called the World Series of Poker. It was some other thing. But yeah, it's crazy. You got to look up Arthur Humphreys, baby.
it. Oh yeah, but I mean,
That's my grandpa.
It's just it's interesting where you see a lot of this technology sometimes go. It's honestly, it's not too interesting because it always goes to where the money is.
Yeah.
Like always, it's just where's the money? That is where people are going to be interested in. A lot of money in casinos, a lot of money in Vegas.
Yeah.
I'm off the rails. How am I off the rails? What was I talking about that was off the rails? Let me know, chat. When was
I
I
think they're
off the
talking
rails?
about the drone that flies into your face and explodes.
Oh, so and then it was now maybe I went too hyperbolic on it. Maybe 7-8 years ago, I think like a graphic artist and a university professor, I think was the story. They put together this short fictional video. You know what? Fine. If I'm going to get called out for it, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. I'll school you guys up on the internet, I guess.
Well, people are also mentioning the Black Mirror episode where there was robot bees. Now, I like the Black Mirror. I haven't seen this episode where
You
there's
guys can
robot bees that go into your
You guys can
brain.
clown on me. They weren't called murder bots. You guys can clown on me.
What were they called?
They were called slaughter bots.
Slaughter bots. Ooh, that sounds
I'll
even
play
better.
a little bit, but yeah, it was put together by it was put together by an anti-arms firm to say, like, be careful. Like, we could create... Oh, you guys can't see it. But they put together this little video. It's like 9 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll have the link if you guys want to see it. But they basically went through... Oh, Caxton Jones, by the way. Welcome, Problem Solver. Thank you for subscribing.
Hey, what's up, Caxton?
But yeah, but they put together this thing, and they basically said, what if you had these little robots that would... here we go. And they do a little fictitious breakdown of how this could be used... For example, targeting of individual senators for political reasons. Blocking a bill, we'll have the slaughter bots come blow up in your face.
Wow.
Yeah. So they went through and they talked about what if these things are real. These little things, then they'd fly around, and then human beings would eventually be forced to live like animals, I think, is the ending. And then at the end, this guy pops up and says, this was not real, but it could be. Yeah. Let's see if they...
Wow. Yeah. Whoa, dropped out of a plane like that.
Because they'll talk about it for military tech. Hey, dude, some of the gnarliest, most inhumane, awful chemicals that have ever been tested on human beings were in the name of finding non-lethal options for militaries.
Yeah, that's true.
During the Cold War, the U.S. government spent I'm so glad I wasn't alive then because it wasn't my taxpayer money. They spent so much taxpayer money on how to, like, aerosol acid, basically. I'm not even kidding you. Because they were thinking about one thing that was really noticeable. It's kind of I'm by no means a military historian, but one term that you keep hearing come up a lot is that, generally speaking, decision makers are always fighting the past war. They just look back and go, what happened last time?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh man, cities are just it was so hard to take cities. They're fortified. You have to just blow them up to rubble and they're useless to you. What could we do instead? Well, what if we basically just got everybody on, like, LSD or, like, heroin or something, so they just didn't fight back. We could just kind of walk into the city. But dude, dude, the amount of people put through the amount of chemicals designed, the amount of stuff tested on people to come up with this kind of pie in the sky idea, because it is just chemical weapons is the other thing too, where it's like we're not allowed to use chemical weapons. Like, I thought chemical weapons are bad, but well, no, it's like MDMA. It's like what is this nonsense they were doing? But yeah, I mean, like, billions of dollars just burned on something they never actually did anything.
Whoa, it's called psychochemical warfare.
I don't know. Dude, there was people who probably entered their, like, career in military intelligence focusing on that one thing and, like, died researching it. Like,
oh my gosh, look at this.
It was such a big field, and it's like, for what?
When was the first time that we have a record of psychochemical warfare, Cody? This is an antiquity.
Oh yeah, I'm about to say probably like the Greeks.
No, before that. Check this out. The use of chemicals to induce altered states of mind dates back to antiquity and includes the use of plants such as thorn apple that contain combinations of anticholinergic alkaloids with anticholinergic alkaloids in 184 BC. In 184 BC, Hannibal's army used belladonna plants to induce disorientation.
Oh.
Wow, that's crazy. Wow.
Oh, Hannibal. Pretty cool guy.
You a big Hannibal fan?
Yeah, I'm big. No, but very, very interesting story. Really, really interesting story.
Why is it interesting?
Well,
what was the last thing we got to go over? Because we've already gone over time.
Okay, well, I guess you can say it's really interesting because he was the guy who basically... Oh, he was the guy who almost captured Rome a couple times. He was on the right side. He was the
Punic Wars guy, right?
He was on the right side of, like, one of the biggest slaughters in military history, so that was good.
Okay.
Well, I forgot what it was called. There was some river.
Do you mean the winning side or the right moral side?
Doesn't matter, dude. The winning side.
Okay.
The good. Tell you what, when there's a massive slaughter, the good side's the one where you're not slaughtered.
Okay.
Because yeah, let me ask you something. Morally, who was in the right when Hannibal and the Carthaginians killed all those Roman soldiers way back in whatever? Who was morally correct? Seriously, let me know in chat. Who was the morally superior one? It's how absurd this stuff is, man. People look back 1,000 years ago and be like, what? Who was morally superior? The Austro-Hungarians or the British? Like, what are you talking about? These ancient dead civilizations. What do you mean? I don't know. My larger point is, yeah. Anyway, it was crazy. He circled a big guy and he got him. But it was really interesting. He led, he just kind of fought a series of uphill battles and won because he was pretty smart. So that's kind of cool.
Wow.
But yeah, I just think, I don't know. I always think it's funny, like the right side of history, yada, yada. Dude, the right side of history is the side of history where you're not imprisoned, burned alive, and have your history destroyed so no one knows you existed. That is the wrong side. Whatever morals they held, guess what? They don't get to tell anyone about them. The wrong side is whatever side has their cities marched on, burned down, and the society erased. They happen to be on the wrong side.
Well, I'm down with Horatius. Have you ever read The Lays of Rome? You ever read The Lays of Rome, Cody?
Read what?
The Lays of Rome and the story of Horatius.
Nope.
Oh, I'm trying to find it really fast, but I can't find it. I can't remember what he says, but like in the end, it talks about how the army was going to invade Rome and the army wasn't ready yet. So Horatius actually stood in front on this bridge that they had to cross to get into Rome. And then I can't even quote it.
Well, then, why'd you sum it up? What happened?
I don't remember, but he basically, him and two other guys, he inspired them to fight an entire army just by basically bottlenecking them on this bridge to give time for the rest of the army to assemble behind them so they didn't sack the city. And I can't remember what he said, but he said, like, what is better than to die for the ashes of your fathers and the good of your, oh my goodness gracious, if
Was
somebody
it,
can
my ancestors were smiling on me, Imperial? Can you say the same?
Ooh, what's that from? Is that from like Gladiator or
Yeah,
something?
was that Plato? No, what was that from? You don't know where it's from? You
no,
wouldn't. I'll give
don't.
you a pass. It's from Skyrim. It's from the introduction to Skyrim. I probably got the quote slightly wrong, but it's from the beginning of Skyrim.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to look and see if I can find it. So, the Lays of Rome, Horatius, because we get this is going to be a great way to end. Horatius, ashes of your ancestors.
And you can just send me the link. I'll put it up.
Okay, cool. So it's going to be in here somewhere.
But yeah, I don't know. I just
In the first
Christian
poem,
Solid God. It's Skyrim. It's everything's Skyrim, man. There's Skyrim was in the news again today. Skyrim is always in the news.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. So the Lays of Ancient Rome.
Hey, a lot of people got it. Skyrim. Nice.
Okay, so we're going to do both.
Dude, it is
of
crazy.
these.
Like, Skyrim came out 9 years ago? 9 years? No. Was it 11 or 12? Was it 8 years ago? Either way, this game came out almost a decade ago. It's in the news almost every month. Literally, the Skyrim grandma was just in the news because the media tried to fake stuff about her. Crazy times, man. But yeah, Skyrim's the...
Okay, so here it is.
You always send me these... Okay, here we go.
Okay, so in the first poem, Horatius describes how Publius Horatius and two companions, Spurius Lartius and Titus Erminius, hold the Sublician Bridge, the only span crossing the Tiber at Rome, against the Etruscan army of Lars Porsena, king of Clusium, or whatever that is. The three heroes are willing to die in order to prevent the enemy from crossing the bridge and sacking the otherwise ill-defended city. While the trio close with the front ranks of the Etruscans, Roman engineers hurriedly work to demolish the bridge, leaving their enemies on the far side of the swollen river. The poem contains these often quoted lines. This is awesome. Thus spake out brave Horatius, the captain of the gate, to every man upon this earth death cometh soon or late. And how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temple of his gods? That's pretty awesome, huh? I mean, I think it is at least. How can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods? That's awesome, dude. That's like going down.
For the fan, yeah, guys, there's a fan on. We're working on getting the AC. You can probably see us both sweating.
Yeah.
It's like probably literally 100 degrees in here with the fan
No,
on,
it is more than 100 degrees in here right now.
I apologize. We're working on getting an AC unit installed, hopefully soon. They sent us half the AC. They didn't send us the full AC. They sent us half the AC 3 weeks late. We're sending it back to Jeff Bezos or whoever to get something installed. But yes,
this was literally ordered on May 9th, and it's funny that somebody brings this up and can tell that we're sweating in the studio because I have two ceiling fans. I have two ceiling fans that are trying to get installed here. And we literally have in this corner right here half of a Mr. Cool DIY air conditioner that was ordered May 9th and the other half hasn't come. And at this point, I'm just going to have to get a refund from Jeff Bezos and try a different avenue of procuring this system. Because, yeah, it's absurd in here. We've been recording super early in the morning in order to keep it from being that hot. But now that we're doing these evening streams, it is unbearable. So anyway, we're actually going to get out of here, guys. It has been an awesome Tuesday night hangout stream. Thank you for everybody that joined today. Welcome, Caxton Jones. We look forward to seeing you in the chat a whole lot more often. If you guys want to contribute, make sure you check out a link in the description of all of our videos. Or you can also join the channel. It's a really inexpensive way of supporting us and keeping these live streams coming. Also, make sure you follow us on Twitter at PSP Radio 1. This is Problem Solver Politics. Ooh, we will see you in the next video.